My story takes place during the summer of 1974. My husband and I lived in a small little town towards the tip of Cape Cod, and we had a pretty contentious relationship. We decided to take a trip cross country to see if we might make that relationship work. I had the bright idea that if we lived in a tent for 6 months, that everything would be great and we would reconnect with each other. I know all of you would think, yeah, that's what you want to do if you're having trouble with your relationship. So the trip across the Midwest was interesting in a boring sort of way. Luckily, we had a bunch of weed that had been given to us as going away gifts from our friends. It made the trip so much more fun. We were trying to stay off the highway, the freeways, and just stay on the back road so we could experience the countryside. Now, I want to tell you that my husband was born and raised in New York City, so he never needed to drive, so he never learned. He was 6'3", had long red hair that hung below his shoulders, and a big red beard. He loved his hair. I had long dark hair, wore granny glasses, lots of India print clothes, bangles on my arms, and always big hoop earrings. You get the picture. Needless to say, a lot of those small towns, those farming communities, didn't welcome us with open arms. In fact, we got a lot of odd looks, and a couple of times were asked to leave. At that time, you would often see in restaurant windows, no hippies allowed. So we got the message, and we traveled as quickly as we could across Nebraska, heading towards the Black Hills in South Dakota. We had been reading Buried My Heart at Wounded Knee and thought it would be interesting to visit some of those areas. So we ended up on the Rosebud Indian Reservation, which is part of the Sioux Nation. It was my first time on a reservation, and I was pretty shaken by the poverty there, and I felt like we didn't belong. My husband, on the other hand, I guess because he thought he could pass as Indian, that everything was going to be cool. So we headed on to the campground, which was in the center of the reservation, and I was quite surprised when we got there. There was a beautiful stream flowing through it, trees, grass, and a large hill or a small mountain that cast shade all over the campground. And I couldn't understand why people weren't living here rather than the barren land that they were on. So first things first, we got stoned and hiked up that hill to see what we could see. I have no idea how long we were up there, as it was sometime in the afternoon when we started, and the sun was starting to set when we were starting back down. Because we were up so high, in both senses of the word, we could see the whole valley. And off in the distance, there were a line of cars heading our way. My first thought was, crap, we're gonna have to share the campground with somebody. You know, being all hippie and stuff. But as I got closer, I realized that these were not campers. These were all the same kind of cars, big and black, moving at a very fast rate of speed, very close together, and their windows were all rolled up. So we hid behind some bushes to see what we could see. We wanted to see what was going to play out down there. Sure enough, they pulled in and blocked our car in. And at the same moment, all their doors opened, and these very large men in black suits got out. Now, having had spent the late 60s in the San Francisco area and Los Angeles and attended a lot of demonstrations and even been arrested a couple of times, this said one thing to me: FBI. So, have I mentioned that my husband's a bit of a narcissist? He didn't think anything bad would ever happen to him. The world really centered around him. Meanwhile, down there at the bottom, it was apparent these guys were not going to leave till we came down, as they all had binoculars scanning the hillside for us. So it was like, okay, we could go over the hill behind us, but to where? Or we could go down and face the music, so that's what we had to do. As we got closer, I realized it wasn't the FBI, but the BIA, which is the Bureau of Indian Affairs, but for reservations. My husband says, "Oh, cool, they're Indians, no problem." I guess he felt because he had long hair and had read a couple of books about their culture, they would accept him as one of their own. I was not feeling that. So we continued down, and when we got down there, I was saying, let's just play it cool, like we're just a couple of stoner campers, which we were, and just see what they want. Maybe they want nothing. So when we get down, I was quite surprised to find out that I was the object of their interest. They slammed me up against the car and put handcuffs on me and put me in the back seat of one of their cars. Now, I knew enough from previous experiences not to open my mouth. I was hoping my husband wouldn't open his either, but no telling. So as I sat there, they had been going through our car. Oh, I forgot to tell you this. Remember, we're talking the 70s, so. We kept our weed folded up in our tent, in our back seat with our dog sleeping on it. So that's important for this number. So anyway, they hadn't taken the tent out of the car, so I thought, well, they hadn't found the weed. And oh, did I mention that we also had some acid in the glove compartment? I was really hoping that they wouldn't find that. So after a few minutes of them doing whatever they were doing, it seemed apparent they didn't find anything of interest. So I thought they'd just let me go and they'd go on their way. Well, that's not what happened. They all got in the car and didn't let me out. I was trying to make eye contact with my husband to just sort of touch base, like, are you worried about me? But so he's standing there like, with his arms crossed, staring at our car, and I realized he's not thinking about me. He's more worried about that weed. So as the car is pulled away, I'm wondering how I'm going to find him again. And then next thought is, do I really want to find him again? So we go for quite a ways, and we come to this tiny little town, and they took me into this very small little post office. I thought, this is weird. But when we get in there, I realized that it doubles as a jail. So this whole time, no one is talking to me. So I had no idea what's going on. They fingerprinted me and took my picture. So, and this was all a major buzzkill, by the way. So they put me in what I could only imagine was a closet when it wasn't being used as a cell. So I had some time to think while I was in there, and I'm trying to remember, could there be a warrant out for me for my days in California? I didn't think so, but that was the 60s, and I was there, so I don't really remember a lot of it. Throughout the night, different agents would come in and ask me my name. It was confusing because they had my driver's license and my car registration with my name on it, and I assumed when they got my fingerprints back, they would have my name on it. So the confusion just lasted all night for me. At one point, one of them came in and asked me if I knew Patty Hearst. So I was like, did she get caught? Because she had been on the run with the SLA, which I also forgot to mention, sorry. No answer. And then they started talking to me as if I was friends with her, like I should know personal things about her. It was just so confusing. And at some point during the morning, an agent came in and opened the door, and he said, "You're free to go." So now I'm sort of pissed, because it's like, what's up? So I'm sort of yelling at him that he didn't have any right to hold me without charging me, or at least without telling me what this was about. Well, apparently he could do whatever he wanted to do. What I got from him was a very scary stink eye that was basically telling me to shut my mouth. At that point, another agent came in and said, "Nah, not Patty Hearst." So now I realize, like, oh, they think I'm Patty Hearst. Now I'm standing at the post office window, which is really right next to the jail window, and the post office guy, he's laughing, and I said, "Did they really think I was Patty Hearst?" And he thought it was really funny. He said, "Yeah, they thought they had captured the most wanted criminal in America, and they were waiting all night long for your fingerprints to come back, and had the FBI on standby to swoosh in and get you once you were identified. So now they're pissed off because you're just you, and they look like fools in the eyes of the FBI." So now I'm thinking it's sort of funny. I mean, I was okay. They didn't hurt me or anything, so I was sort of laughing and gathering my things, getting ready to go out. And I'm heading towards the door. I see a Most Wanted poster with Patty Hearst's picture on it and the couple that she was supposedly traveling with. So I thought I needed that poster. And I deserved it. Don't you all think I deserved that poster? So I was gonna pull it down and just leave. I didn't even get my hand up when I got slammed in the back into the door. One of the agents is yelling at me that it's federal property, and it's a federal offense to take it, and did I want to end up back in that closet? Well, no, I did not. So, but I thought I'd try one more thing. So I said, "But wait a second, aren't reservations sovereign? Like, what do you care? Just get another one from the FBI." Well, it's not a good idea to argue with cops of any sort, because they don't really like that too much. So I finally just realized I needed to shut up and get out. So I slunk out the door, now on the street, and I'm wondering how I'm gonna find my asshole husband. I saw him sitting cross-legged under a tree down the street in all of his stoned glory. Apparently someone had gone out and, because remember, he doesn't drive, so somebody had gone out and driven him into town with my car, my dog, the weed and the acid, and there he was. I had a fantasy for a second of going back inside, telling the BIA agent that he had drugs in the car, just so they'd arrest him so I wouldn't have to deal with him. I immediately realized, bad idea, the car's in my name. So he didn't even get up to come to me. I had to walk to him. So I go over thinking, oh, great. And he looks up at me and he says, "Hey man, at least they didn't find the weed." So that morning, with an assist from Patty Hearst, I realized that the crack that had been in our relationship was actually a chasm, and 6 months in a tent was not going to fix anything. Thank you.